and what's the data right now. And I need to talk about the environment, okay? Because remember that what happens when I open this stage, I tell the environment to do something. So I want to just keep a little bit of track of the environment, okay? So what I want to keep track of is that I'm actually, doing a task occurrence in the world. I don't care about how it works inside. I don't care at all. All I care about is I did start this task occurrence. Maybe I'll throw in the input parameters that it had when it was called. Okay. Okay. Sorry. You know what's bothering me is there seem to be a bunch of slides that I lost. So let me just see where they went. What? Huh. You know what? I lost this slide somehow. So you know what? I'm going to have to do it. So let me do it. Okay. The interactions between the business entity instances. Okay, so this is where things get kind of, hairy. All right. So let's talk about this. There's actually multiple ways. So here I've got my requisition order. Okay, I'm just showing the life cycle. Here's my line item, and remember there's several of these line items. And then here's my procurement order, and there's several of those as well. And I'm not showing the information model, just the life cycle. So what are some kinds of interactions? Well, one kind of interaction is this idea of the creation, right? What might happen is, I'm here, I've got the thing, I need to launch some line item instances so that I can do research on each line item, okay? So that's one kind of interaction, launch, okay? Now, second kind of interaction is kind of what we've talked about, the idea of just, maybe a milestone goes through and it has the effect of making some guard true, okay, triggering a guard. Fine, okay. Okay, now another one is, and this gets kind of more interesting, okay, something happening in one instance which actually triggers some condition in some other instance, okay? So for example, if in the procurement order, the supplier says, you know what, I reject doing this, I'm going to not do it, okay? Then what we're doing, in some sense, this guy is watching for this to happen, because once this happens, I'm going to view this as a compromised milestone, okay? I'm expressing it just as a condition. I'm just saying, well, if there's any procurement order that's associated with me, which happens to achieve this milestone of rejected, okay, that triggers the compromising of this milestone. Okay. I mean, when you implement it, of course, you implement it more in terms of a pub sub style. Okay. Yeah.
Shouldn't that ever go to the guard?
No. Interestingly, the way we're modeling it, let me see what happens here. This is very, very deep animation here. Also, this rejected is going to open up this guy, which is for any line item where the owning procurement order was rejected, I have to do more research. So I'm going to open up the research. So I'm not even going to open this guy up yet. This guy. Particular way I modeled it. Okay. There's more stuff. I'm just going to skip over this. We don't want to. So anyway, just the point is, really just focus on this. And when this is rejected, that starts up some research on the line items affected, and it also just tells me that that's compromised. Okay. Later, once I'm done with all the researching, this is looking at all the affected line items have been researched. Okay. And that's when I'll go ahead and open this stage again. It's a way I could model it. Okay, so this kind of shows that things can be a little bit, hairy in terms of propagation or ripple effect, right? I have one event here, right, and it's kind of rippling to open this and compromise that. Okay, so in general, we've got this whole issue of the rippling. We describe it to people in terms of ECA rules. We say, oh, well, this rule, this got triggered because this thing happened. Okay. So now I can go back to the other slide. Okay. So here's the here's the deal. On the one hand, we would describe the semantics in terms of, well, what I want to do is I want to talk about, I've got some snapshot of the GSM, I've got some snapshot of the environment, I've got some external event that now I'm going to consume. Okay, maybe it is the supplier, said he's rejecting the procurement order. I want to go somewhere, right? I want to go to a new environment and a new snapshot. So I'm going to call that a macro step. Okay, and oh, by the way, in the process of opening stages and closing stages, I might have opened some atomic stage, and so I might generate some additional events to the outside world. Okay, so I'm going to keep track of that as well when I think about the macro step. Okay, so I'm going to chew up one event from the outside world. There's going to be some kind of rippling, opening stages, closing stages, compromising milestones. Okay, in the process, I probably create some events for the outside world, and then I'm going to have a new snapshot, new data in my snapshot, and apply the events to the environment. Okay, so launch, call the new service task that we're called, the external task. Okay, so that's a macro step. Okay. Now, really what's happening is, so then what happens? Then, in essence, there's the propagation of the ECA rules. Okay, so the first step is, okay, I'm going to apply the event. Just applying the event, it may open stages, even atomic stages, but that, okay, I don't have, call the external source, so I still have no events for the external world. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to apply guards, milestones, and milestone compromisers in an ECA style until I quiesce, hopefully, okay? And then I'll call that the end of the macro step. Okay, so I've got all these micro steps in this macro step. So you might be asking yourself, well, gee golly, what if it doesn't terminate? What if we get into some kind of cycle? Could we get into some kind of cycle? Am I guaranteed? Is this deterministic? Is this non-deterministic? Okay, Guy just wrote down a bunch of guards and milestones, so it's an obvious question. So here's the deal. By the way, in this setup, just as an observation, as far as the data attributes go, you only change the data attributes when you apply the event. That's when you write into the payload of the event area, if you will, and maybe into if it's an event of the service call return, then you actually write into the right set of the outputs go into the right set into the data attributes. Anyway, that's where you change the data attributes. Okay. After that, all you're messing with are the status attributes. You're saying some stage is active, some milestone is compromised, some other stage is inactive. Okay, so that's a little factor. So in order to tame this monster, okay, in order to feel confident that this will always quiesce, okay, we had to do something. Okay, we have this beautiful idea of this GSM and writing down all these guards and milestones. Okay, but we want the thing to be well behaved. We want it to be well behaved. So we have arrived at a well-formedness condition. So we're only going to consider GSM schemas to satisfy a certain well-formedness condition. It turns out it is based on some kind of acyclicity condition. So far, we have, anytime we try to write down a schema, it satisfies our acyclicity condition. And then, we have kind of this lemma, which basically says, if you're well formed, and if you, so you have to kind of honor the acyclicity with it by doing these microsteps in the topological, according to a topological sort, and then you end up understanding it's all going to be monotonic and nice. And the point is that if we have a well-formed schema and we apply in the topological sort, then we can characterize what's going to happen using a single formula that talks about the pre-state and the post-state. Okay, so that's step one of the kind of the theoretical thing I want to talk about during this talk today. So let me actually stop there. Let's see if there's any questions, and then we'll do the pause for a moment. Yeah.
You mentioned the update to data is only when you consume the event. So what if you, in the cascade of the ripple effect, you open a substage that has an atomic task that involves writing the data?
Well, okay. First off, if it's a task in this atomic stage, and that task is going to call some, say, human activity, obviously we just open it and then we don't do anything further for this macro step. But you're saying, what if the atomic task is, let's say, just a small little computation? I'm just going to add attributes A and B and put it into attribute C. To play this game, we even view those small little computations as external service calls, and we're going to call it from this macro step, and then we'll catch it on the next macro step. That will be considered as another external event coming in.
So when it generates an event for
Anytime we call a task, there's an event that goes out of the GSM over to the environment. Anytime the task completes in the environment, that is an event coming back in. So that will be an external event. So the word external, I'm meaning external to my nice protected world of GSM. I mean, it may be that computations are happening in the same machine, but I'm going to view that as being outside of my nice protected world of GSM. Okay, so one of the reasons we're doing that is even with this very short-lived task of doing, let's say, a computation, I just want to separate that from the ripple of opening and closing stages. So the focus of GSM is just, I have one event coming in, I'm going to open and close stages based on just the GSM constructs. That's all I want to focus on. If there's a computation that was called for, I'm going to say, fine, I'm going to do all my ripple first, and only after all that ripple, then I'll consider what was the output of some computation. I mean, maybe another thing I should have said philosophically, I kind of forgot. Why are we bothering with the stage structure anyway? Okay, why not just have a bunch of atomic stages with tasks in them? Okay, well, the reason is, both for business people and actually for us, maybe more intricately thinking computer scientists, we can't handle the complexity of 100 tasks or 200 atomic stages. We need ways to modularize. Okay, so part of the whole game with GSM is the larger stages, the idea that we've got a larger module. We can think in terms of, what's it take to open this, what's it take to close this. We can think of this as a black box for part of the time. Okay? And then later we can say, oh, I want to have more detail. I want to understand more detail. So part of the whole game with GSM, part of this chasing all these ECA rules, it's really about just addressing the modularity.
It sounds very much like subroutines. Is that how you think of them?
I can think of them as subroutines, but they're not as clearly separated out, because if I open up this stage, and then maybe I do this, and then that has the effect of writing down here, and maybe I'm going to move on to here, okay? But this data that this guy wrote, maybe that guy over there can read it, and is going to